Very good evening to you. Welcome back to the football pitch, live on YouTube. It's Friday night at 7 o'clock, and I'm your host, Cammy McDonald. Tonight we're diving in to the dugout at Dens Park. We're revisiting our take on Steven Pressley. I think Dennis and I will be, as the title suggests, eating a slice of humble pie tonight. So we're looking at the data, the stats. Is the Elvis era a bit of a rock and roll success, or is it ending up heartbreak your tail up at Dens Park? So we'll let you know and visit our take from earlier in the season. Before we get to that, or after we've done that, we'll be looking at the results last weekend. Talking about Dundee United, obviously stunning Celtic. Rangers absolutely hammering Aberdeen. Premiership table is starting to look tighter than a pre-season hamstring. We'll break down all the results from those games and what it means for the title run-in. And we'll spend the last half hour of the show, and amongst some other things there, we'll be looking at Cowdenbeath. Lowland League aficionados, we'll be taking you to Central Park in the company of Colin Nelson, who was with us earlier in the season. We'll be seeing how the league campaign in that Lowland League has wound up at Central Park. As I say, first and foremost, we're joined by Dennis Newell and Colin Nelson. Guys, good evening. Thanks very much for joining us.
Good evening, Cammy. Good evening, Colin.
Evening, Dennis. Evening, Cammy. Thanks for having me on.
Not a problem. Not a problem. It's been good to get back to talking some real football. You know, as I say, we were European football last week or the week before last, and the company of likes of what's happening at Spurs and the absolute disaster for English clubs and whatever else in Europe. It's good to get back talking some good Scottish football, as I say, bringing it back to the grassroots and bring it down to the lower leagues. But I think, Dennis, start of the season, you and I made a prediction. I think it was possibly the first or the second week of the podcast. We basically says Dundee have cocked this up big style and appointing Steven Pressley, tipped him to finish bottom and probably bottom by some distance. It's not turned out like that, Dennis.
No, it's turned out great for him. He's took his time, and I don't mind being proved wrong with that, because it's always good to see a team improving. And I just thought his stature coming in would maybe not be accepted with the Dundee players when they were already struggling. But I'll tell you what, slowly but surely, and I just wish that he was hoping this was the start of the season, he would be up there being a contender, probably in the top 5, maybe. Because I think Dundee, I'm probably saying maybe about 3-4 weeks ago, Dundee were looking really good, but they've maintained that level. They're not brilliant, but I'll tell you what, they're able to hold their own in the Premier League quite well. And the bottom line is they have surprised us. We did think that the managerial appointment was a bad one, but we've got the custard pie in that one because it's worked out really good for them. And we'll certainly be seeing them next year. That's a certainty. Because, mind you, having said that, Dundee are a strange place. They've had managers sacked when they're at the top of the league, so you know you never know what they're going to do. But the club itself must be delighted with Pressley coming in and getting the team turned around to the way they are.
Yeah, I mean, Colin, earlier in the season, as I say, it was one of our first episodes when we came back after the obviously the close season, and we thought Dundee had made a massive blunder to replace Tony Dock, who I thought had done a bad job there. He kept them safe, but by quite some distance towards the end of tail end of last season. I think the last couple of games of the season, he kept them up. Went up to Perth and got that victory, you know, which definitely kept them safe. So we sort of thought they'd made a massive blunder, but Pressley seems to have taken it forward, you know, and it's definitely not been that bad mistake, Colin.
No, look, I think it's an easy judgment to make at the start. To be fair, I don't think it's, I don't think you'd be the only one, with that opinion. Oh. I even think Dundee supporters might have had the same opinion. So what I would say is that I like Pressley. I think he handles himself well. I actually think that he uses that negativity around him as a positive internally. Yeah. And I think he's creating a wee bit of siege mentality internally to say, look, let them talk. We'll do our talking on the pitch. And he's slowly kind of, look, he'll tactically be very good. He'll be good on the grass. He'll be good at all that stuff. But But like, you know, just because somebody's maybe got some negative previous work experience doesn't make them a bad manager potentially. He'll need a good staff behind him. I know Scott Patterson, he was at Cowdenbeath actually. At one point, he's a very good coach. Barry Nicholson's in there. And then below that, they've got, like, I know how Dundee work from a youth point of view. They're one of the most professional that I've ever dealt with personally. And then they've got Gordon Strachan and then John Nelms. And I think the actual structure of the club's quite good, and it'll give Steven Pressley the tools to actually achieve what they're trying to achieve. But ultimately, it boils down to what happens on a Saturday in 90 minutes. And I think at the minute, they're obviously doing well. I think the recruitment's been good. I think they've really used the loan market really well. And obviously, like, losing boys like Josh Mulligan and stuff like that's a big blow. But it looks to me like they've actually managed to kind of recruit very well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. Dennis, obviously, in the winter window there, they brought in some decent players, you know, strengthened the squad, because I think they realised, here, we're going to be an SPL club next season, you know, and it's something they can afford to do. I think the squad was questioned at the time we were talking about, so not just the manager being questioned. Obviously, I think the squad was questioned at the time where we did that episode. So as I say, the recruitment that Presley's done, as Colin says, you get guys there with experience. You know, you've got Gordon Strachan up there, you know, behind the scenes. So it's given them something to fall back on. And yeah, I mean, Dundee with some cracking results. First home win against Celtic in 37 years in the league. You know, that result a couple of weeks ago against Dundee United as well, you know, where they're 2-0 down with a minute and 20 seconds to go. And end up obviously getting a share of the points. That shows that Presley's got his players fighting for him as well, you know. So yeah, maybe the result against Celtic's not necessarily that big a shock, you know, because let's be fair, Celtic have been pretty poor. They're not the only tied to take points from them this season, but they've definitely surprised us. And yeah, let's hold our hands up. If we get it wrong, we will totally hold our hands up. It was one of our most viewed clips, you know, that and alongside you, Slaughter and Hibs centre halves, you know, has been on social, a couple of the biggest, most viewed and certainly most commented on clips. So yeah, when we get it wrong, we'll hold our hands up and say, listen guys, we don't know everything, we're not always perfect. So
yeah. What I would say is it was Dundee United that beat Celtic 2-0. So that is what I think you're saying, as against the fact that Dundee went down narrowly to Hearts.
No, I'm not talking about last week. I'm talking about earlier in the season with Dundee.
No, I know that. I know you're going back to that degree, but just in case somebody get confused with that, because when you said beating Celtic, that we're not talking about last week. We're talking about past that, a way back. Yeah. But I think Dundee have really just got to keep themselves in the position. Don't try and go mad with this, because if they actually think that they're going to, what you say, I'm just looking at the league as we speak. They're sitting there on 32 points. Now, I don't think with what's left, in fact, I don't think it's achievable anyway, but 43 points Falkirk's got because they've dipped slightly, and they're sitting at 32 points. And you say to yourself, if they did another game or two under their belt, I wonder if they could maybe match sixth position. I think it's impossible now, but it would have been a shout as the weeks go on to see if they could have got that sixth spot. You would never have thought for a minute when we were talking about the appointment that Dundee at any point would have been looking potentially as a top 6 team, no matter who they brought in.
Yeah,
but I think it's been a great season for them, and they're 5 points behind Dundee United, their rivals. I wonder if they could maybe make that up. And of course, when we say potentially that the top 6 are maybe going to stay as they are, which I think you've still got the battle there between Dundee and Dundee United still to come up. Even though last week I'm saying, well, what is it to play for in that? That's pride and a wee bit one-upmanship when you look at the Dundee derby still to go.
Yeah.
I think one of the main things for the Dundee supporters, the Dundee people behind the scenes, their ambitions this year, probably now, is to, as Dennis says, let's finish above our biggest rivals. If we can
That's
do
right.
that, that'll be perceived as a small success. And I think that will be internally something that they're trying to achieve for sure.
I think if the season finished at this moment in time, I don't think Dundee supporters would actually be thinking that it wasn't a success. I would think a lot of them would still be thinking, yeah, well, that's not really it. We've no finished yet. But I think if you'd said that round about, I don't know, September, October, you might have been looking at that in a different light and thinking, well, we could win 8th spot. Where at this time of the year, they might have bitten their arm off for it.
Yeah, of course. Fans are fickle though. When they're on a good run, they're wanting to look at the next.
They're always thinking we want more, which is right. You should expect more. But I think if you're sitting there looking at how they were at the beginning, then you've got to realise it's been a good turn.
Yeah. So say 5 points behind Dundee United, 2 games to go at the split. So neither of the 2 sides are going to get into top 6 place. I know Dundee United point-wise can still do it, but they're 7 goals inferior to Falkirk, So, and yet you've got a picture. Next week, Dundee United obviously visit Ibrox. Celtic visit Dens Park next week, So that's a couple of massive games for both clubs. But I think if Dundee can improve on last season's 10th spot, you look at the form of St Mirren, of Kilmarnock and of Aberdeen below them, you've got to fancy that Dundee are going to improve on that 10th spot, So to replace Tony Dock, who got them 10th last season, with a guy who's going to get them close at the top 6, you've got to say it's been the right decision, So yeah.
I think probably Dundee will be quite a challenge next year if they can just maybe get another couple of players into their team. They'll be contenders for that top 6. There's no question of doubt about it.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's talk that at least one player's going to move on in the close season, for decent money. When you take a look at the likes of McGowan moving and the lad that went to Rangers, who's obviously struggled to make a name for himself at Rangers, but I think they've got a squad of players there who is going to get a wee bit weaker. But if they can get money in and actually make use of that money in terms of obviously improving and strengthening the squad, making it a wee bit deeper, you've got to turn around and say, they should push towards getting towards that top 6 next season, and fair play and credit to them for doing so, But let's get this season out the road first. Is basically finishing above 10th spot a good season for them? Would you say that, Colin? If they've improved on last season, is that decent?
You can wear 2 hats. You can be a supporter's hat, or you can be an internal employee. So if I'm the chairman of Dundee, I would say finishing 10th, 9th for a club the size of Dundee. Look, the main ambition is to stay in the league, absolutely, because that financially is ultra important. But look, I think their ambitions easily, even this year, would be to be top 6. Look, Falkirk have done it probably with less budget than Dundee. People always say, it's only about money. Some people will say it's not about money, but Falkirk are proving that you can achieve things with a model where continuity and recruitment and a manager that knows the league and has got a style of play and all that kind of stuff can work really well. So look, if I'm a Dundee chairman, I'm probably going to be saying, look, I need a wee bit more, but ultimately I'm happy because I'm just looking for improvement on the previous season. As you quite rightly said, look, they lost Lyle Cameron, they lost Josh Mulligan, they lost the other boy, McGowan. Those are big players and almost impossible to replace. But they're potentially going to improve on their league performance. So for me, I would say it's a successful season. Again, going back to the supporters' point of view, they'll want to have the bragging rights by being the biggest club in Dundee first and foremost. And at the minute, they're not, but they could achieve that. But look, I think overall, it would be perceived as a strong improvement with some more improvements to be made in certain areas. look, they've got Luke Graham that's come through and obviously getting a lot of kind of plaudits and getting a lot of headlines and stuff. I've seen Luke when he was a young lad playing on loan at Albion Rovers. He was raw, but you could see that he was going to have a career. Wasn't quite sure he would kick on as much as he did, but fair play, because Dundee are good at giving young lads a real opportunity, not just 1 or 2 games. They tend to try and really give them opportunities in that first team for a run of games and blend them well. They use their loan system really well. So again, I go back to it. That for me is a well run club. So that'll be a huge positive, because if they cash in on Luke Graham, as you both said, reworking the money that they'll make from a Luke Graham or another person, they'll go again. They'll try and keep improving. So look, it's ultimately, if they get another 2 or 3 wins, I think it would overall be a successful season.
Yeah, that's what it's about, Dennis. If you're going to move on players, as Colin says, if they do move on Luke Graham, it is about strengthening the squad with the money, and not frittering it away or anything else. And they have done that over the last couple of seasons, with the money for McGowan. And again, the name of the lads that went to Rangers, Lyle Cameron. Cameron. Yeah, we're moving these 2 on. They've reinvested that back into the squad, made the squad stronger. They've still got the likes of Simon Murray up there, who's an experienced player at that level now as well. So if they can build and if they can push on, you would expect them to match the likes of a Falkirk. They're maybe not going to match Hibs, Hearts or whatever else, but a Motherwell, you're not telling me Motherwell in terms of budgets much more than what they've got at Dundee, so in terms of that, there's no reason why Dundee can't push for the top 6 if they can get the recruitment spot on.
But that's been our bone of contention with the Old Firm. It's the recruitment. So you look at it and you say, obviously Dundee is doing that part of the job right. That's why we're talking about them being successful this year. And if they continue in that vein, they'll be able to pick up decent players without having to go to the other side of the world or wherever you need to go. And basically, that's what they're able to do. They're able to go out there and get players that can compete against Rangers, Celtic, and Motherwell. Did a great result just not that long ago against Motherwell. So you say to yourself, what have they spent in relation to the Old Firm or any of the other clubs? And you say they are getting the recruitment right. And if they continue in that vein, that's really the important part, because there's no point in going out and spending 8, 9, 10 million pounds as the Old Firm can do on a player. And as we know, some of them have been sitting on the bench because they're not good enough. Whereas Dundee could maybe go and get a player in Scotland. There is players in Scotland that would do a job for Dundee in the Scottish Premier League, and they're capable. And they don't seem to be embarrassed about players coming because they've not got a fancy name or a country or wherever they're coming from. And that's a good thing about Dundee. They'll bring players in that are good enough for the job, rather than what they're called, how good they are in another country or whatever, because they know that they would be fit for purpose in the Premier League. And that's where I hope they continue in that vein. And I do hope they continue with Steven Pressley, because, again, just finishing it off, he has done a great job for them, which proves us wrong.
Indeed. When we look at Dundee's result last week, obviously they've gone to Tynecastle, pushed Hearts all the way, and Hearts eventually grinding out that 1-0 victory. Ultimately finished with 10 men, but I mean, Frankie Kent going off late. So McAtee getting the winning goal with only 13 minutes left. So, that kept Hearts 3 points clear of the top at the top of Rangers, and as we know, on the Sunday, Dundee United managed to beat Celtic quite convincingly. I thought Dundee United played pretty well. Certainly a convincing victory against Celtic 2-0, and that leaves Celtic 5 points adrift of Hearts, 3 points adrift of Rangers, who on the Saturday get a very convincing result. I don't think the performance at times, again, was what Rangers fans would want, but again, a 4-1 victory over Aberdeen on the Saturday. Falkirk rather surprisingly going down 2-1 at home at St Mirren. As you say, Dennis, you would have expected Falkirk to secure their top 6 spot. It's still in question, but that's a good victory for St Mirren, and a much needed victory for St Mirren, because Kilmarnock also getting a victory last week. They beat Livingston 2-0, so the two of them are a wee bit of parity at the foot of the table, both on 27 points. St Mirren, by virtue of a slightly improved goal difference, are sitting 10th, where Kelly are in that last playoff spot, or the relegation playoff spot. Aberdeen by no means out of that relegation playoff trouble either. And then you get Dundee 2 points further forward. Dundee United, they're 5 points clear of Dundee. So I think they don't need to be watching over their back for that playoff spot. And then Motherwell and Hibs grinding out a nothing each result at Fir Park. In front of, you've got to say, almost 10,000 at Motherwell, so that's a decent crowd at Fir Park on a Saturday afternoon, so their form is obviously bringing in the home fans, Colin.
It's unbelievable. I think the fact that manager and that club's kind of managed to do what they're doing and dominate the ball, and some of the talent they've got that they've recruited that have kind of, you always say, well, why didn't Rangers get in there first? Why didn't Hibs? Why didn't, Aberdeen? Why did they not sign them before a Motherwell? Because there's clearly wage gap levels. So the recruitment has been unbelievable. But the manager has been also unbelievable for me. He's probably, alongside John McGlynn, manager of the year. I think the fact that he's galvanised the support to come out and watch and support this group of players is brilliant. It'll keep the chief exec and the finance director really happy as well. And they'll be looking to try and continue to grow that. The biggest issue they're going to face is quite simple. They're probably going to lose that man quite soon. And some of the players. So I would say enjoy it while you can, because some of the football, I know it gets plaudits, but I'd only really heard about it on podcasts and read it in the newspapers and online. But see, when I actually went and watched a couple of their games, I was like, wow, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Some of the play was exceptional. So yeah, unbelievable season for them. But Hibs are still on me a shout at catching them, to be fair. So although they've had a successful season, Motherwell, a couple of defeats and they might not get in Europe, but I'd like to see them do it, because I've obviously got an affinity with them, because I do a cooperation agreement with them through Cowdenbeath. So I know Nick Dawes and I know youth David Clarkson, and it's a really, really good club, unbelievable people. I think I said that on the last podcast. We've got 3 of their young kids on loan at Cowdenbeath now. Brilliant boys, very respectful, they work hard, and you can see that there's a really good grounding that Motherwell are giving to their young players as well. Really respectful, and yeah, I like that about them. They're a good club.
Yeah. They've always been good at bringing in youngsters, and I've had them first-hand experience as well, because when I managed at Cumbernauld United, we had Lee McCulloch, Greg Denham, Roy Sendu, Alan Shields, Paul McSherry. These were all farmed out to me from Motherwell when Alec McLeish was there, and Jim Griffin. And most of them went on to have a good enough senior career. Lee McCulloch, mind you, he did break his leg with us, but we had a good relationship with him at Cumbernauld. Started just briefly with Tommy McLean, and then Alec McLeish come in, and continued while I was there. And it's worth its weight in gold. There was a few other players that could have come out, but we were quite a decent and strong team, and I always felt that taking any more would create a problem. If they had a reserve game that they wanted to play on a Saturday, they would have been taken back and we would have been left short. So I had to limit the amount of players that we actually took from Motherwell. But they were very, very good, and they could obviously see farming them out and done them good. So it's obviously continued. That was when you used to hammer the studs into the bottom of your boots whenever I was doing that. But they're still doing it, so it's a good sign.
I think the one thing about Motherwell, I don't know who would have kind of sounded out this manager and his staff and some of the players, but whoever that is, See, a lot of the fans, they only look at the manager, they only look at the players.
Yeah.
But somebody above them has brought these people in and recruited them, and also the manager, although he'll have a say in a lot of the players, it will be working in tandem with somebody on the recruitment side. So these are people that are in the background, but they deserve a hell of a lot of credit, trust me. They won't, because when things go wrong, they're the ones that get the abuse.
Well, the thing is, Colin, that again, I'll go back to what I said 10 minutes ago. That's been the major problem at Parkhead and Ibrox.
But exactly.
The recruitment has been horrendous. And I'm not saying the managers, if you look at them all, were at fault. Obviously, they couldn't make, what would you say, anything out of some of these players. And this is going on. You just need to look at Rangers. Even the squad they've got now is not really any better than it was last year, and they've probably spent twice the money.
Yeah.
So, I look at it and I say to myself, the recruitment has really got to be maybe looking at lesser clubs that have done well.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe bring these people in and say, okay, listen, we're not there to win the Champions League, but at least make us a team that can actually do something Europa League and be in a position that we're not getting embarrassed and we're going to entertain the supporters. And the first question is, you don't need to go all over the world to bring these players in. And there's your budget.
Well, the one thing is,
you and I had a conversation the other week, I think, Cammy, that basically we could go to grounds and pick up players that have been better than what's at Parkhead or Ibrox.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's not our job. It's not our tools. And you say to yourself, how can Motherwell do it? How can Dundee do it? Right? Because they have got better people in the key roles. And that's the difference. That's why the two teams that we're talking about have been successful. And as much as we can give the manager credit, yeah, they definitely need to be, they need to fit as well.
Mm-hmm.
And because both is fitting well, you're seeing a bit of success. And the whole thing is, and the point Collins made there earlier is, Motherwell as an example are good to watch. That's what you go along to the game for. Not to go to Ibrox and see them grinding out a result that says 4-1 against Aberdeen, who are absolutely atrocious, and the game's no fit for purpose. Or Celtic struggling as well. No, you don't want to go to these games. You want to go to a game that you see Motherwell and they've got attractive football. And I think sometimes when people have paid their season ticket within the old firm, they feel they've got to justify it going. But I don't think if they continue in that vein, how many will actually turn up with their season ticket money next year? I think there'll be a few less.
I think when you look at like so what's happening at Ibrox and at Celtic Park, this season, McGowan's not getting played regularly. Lyle Cameron's already been farmed out at Ibrox. They're trying to hunt Finlay Curtis. If they haven't done so, they're trying to hunt him out of the club. That's players who should be the mainstays, or maybe not the mainstays, but they should certainly be featuring on a regular basis. For the money they're bringing in, rather than some of these foreign non-entities that both clubs have brought out. And listen, Rangers and Celtic aren't the only one. You highlighted Dundee, and I had a wee look at the Dundee squad there, and there's very few obvious non-British players.
That's right.
You've got a few there. You've got a couple. You get like Jan Danda, who I don't think's for Castlemilk. But I mean, you've got a few players there.
But again, he's been in the circuit, Cammy. He's came to Ross County. He's played in Scotland, and they've brought him in as to be an addition.
Experience of playing in Scotland. So it's not as if they've just went out and says, right, okay, let's bring him in for somewhere else, somewhere exotic or whatever, and bring him in. Danda's got experience of playing in Scotland at other clubs.
Yeah.
So it's a no risk signing when you bring him in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the majority of the Dundee squad looks to be British home-based players, and to me, our clubs really need to be thinking of that and considering that more, rather than trying to go 5, 6, 7, 4, however many millions out of the country at players who are no better than Scottish, English, Welsh, or Irish players, Colin.
Yeah, listen, I think there's a couple of names came to my head where I think it's an absolute, almost a disgrace, the fact that a Rangers or a Celtic didn't. I think there's he's Scottish or he's British. he's good at Hibs or he's good at Aberdeen or he's good at Dundee, but like we're at the next level. We're playing in Europe. We're trying to get to the next level, etc. Sometimes you need to look after yourselves at home, and the rest will take care of itself. So you go back to the days of Ian Ferguson and Stuart McCall, boys like that. So the travesty I was talking about, how Lewis Ferguson was never a Rangers player beyond me. Boys like Josh Doig, to a degree, there was the other lad obviously like Billy Gilmore went down south, fair enough. But there's a couple of players that I go, surely Rangers, James MacArthur back in the day at Hamilton and all that stuff. You can't tell me Rangers couldn't compete with a Wigan when they went and signed with Wigan, isn't it? Or Celtic, for example. So, but like, it then coincides with the fact that these players could potentially get offered a lot more money. So the recruitment of Rangers has to be, can I get them before that big move to England happens, where the money's on offer? They've got to be better at it. They've got to take more gambles, which I think Rangers tried to do with like a Lyle Cameron. The Celtic maybe tried to do with Luke McGowan. So you've got the flip side where we're saying, well, they're trying to hunt them. Are they good enough overall? But have they been given? Has Lyle Cameron been given a real shot of it? I don't think so. So look, it's a difficult one, but I would like to see a little bit more bravery with the recruitment from the top 3-4 teams. I mean, Derek McInnes has proven it at Hearts. Craig Halkett, a guy that's everybody would probably say
should be in the Scotland squad.
Edge defender, just good solid player. He's probably the best centre back in the league this year. So why is he there and not at Rangers 2 years ago and then building? I mean, I know he was there as a kid, but building himself up. So I just think
how many people have we had? How many people we had, Colin, that have played up front in the Scottish leagues without us digging through and saying who should be playing? Shanklin should have been scooped up by either Celtic or Rangers, for example, 2.5, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
If you can see the potential in the boy, right?
Yeah.
Why is he not playing there?
Exactly. The Rangers used to do it a little bit with...
one example is their centre forwards going abroad. Bowie, another example.
Bowie, yeah.
What he's better than they've got it. They offer him.
Yeah.
So what is their problem? They have got a major problem with this. Buy foreign, otherwise it's no use. No, I'm sorry. We need good British players that are going to be able to compete. And you rightly say, and I've always said that, don't aim for the sky like the Champions League, because we don't have the finances to be in there. Let's see if we can play Europe's level, even if it was a Conference League, and be competitive. That it's not embarrassing in some of the games that we've been playing in Europe. And that's where they've got to start.
As we said a couple of weeks ago, tell Bodo Glimt you need finances to do well in Europe. I know that's probably a one-off.
I know. It is a one-off because they get a doing in the last game.
I get that, But at the end of the day, if you get your recruitment right, and if you don't need to throw away 8, 10, 12 million pounds on foreign players.
Well, I'll give you an example, clear example. Rangers are talking about signing the boy Giga. Celtic have signed the boy Austin Trusty. The Austin Trusty costs, let's just say 5-6 million pounds, maybe 4. Wages are probably going to be 20 grand a week. You can't tell me that Luke Graham can't do what an Austin Trusty can do at Celtic in the right environment with better players, better coaching, better facilities, all these things. So go and get Luke Graham for 1 million or 1.5, whatever it is, and he wouldn't.
You could say the same with Craig Halkett.
Exactly. So they have to be braver. For me, I come at it from a director of football point of view sometimes, and a business decision, and your budget.
The problem is, Colin, they're not doing what you're doing. Their eyes are not open. They're being blinkered by agents coming in here and selling them a bag of sand when it's rubbish. And
there'll probably be a lot of stats involved. There'll probably be a lot of stats and analysis and stuff that will be involved in it as well. There'll be metrics and all that kind of stuff that they'll need to fill a box and a quota. It'll go through a machine and it'll be like, right, X, Y, and Z. But see, sometimes it's what the guy's giving you on the pitch, and yeah, so
I just hope that the Old Firm, I keep going on about them because we need them to be good, right? We've talked about the rest of the Scottish Premier League there, and it's healthy enough. But I do believe that we need entertainment from the Old Firm and let them get on with it, and let the other teams not turn up and you're thinking, yeah, Dundee's got, or Motherwell's got a chance, or Hearts have got a chance to beat them because they're rubbish. No, I want Dundee United, Hibs and the other teams to go there and feel they need to raise their game so that everybody gets entertained. And what actually happens is the Old Firm don't win matches because the rest are better than a right good Old Firm team. Mm-hmm. And that's a problem we've got. It almost takes the gloss away from where Hearts are, just simply because the Old Firm is bad. And it's the wrong way to look at it. But Hearts have been excellent.
I think it's the wrong way to look at it. I think that Hearts' season has been exceptional. You know, their points tally, their mentality to get through games. You know, do they play football like Motherwell, for example? No, but they definitely have a very aggressive style of play, which is get the ball forward quickly. Mm-hmm. 2 wingers, 2 strikers, 2 solid defenders, good goalkeeper. And, you know, they're just a solid team that's well coached. We are good, that everything's pushing in their direction. They've got their fan base behind them. All that equates to the success they're having. It's not just...
They've got strength in each department, though.
Yeah.
You know, you look at Celtic and Rangers and there's a weakness in every department. Hearts have got strength in each of these departments, not just the spine of their team. They've got it in the flanks.
Which is why I think they'll have enough to get through and win the league.
Yeah.
I think they'll have enough.
I think so as well. Yeah. I'll tell you what, though, it is exciting. Let's not kid ourselves, because I think I'm watching more of Hearts than I've ever done in my life, because you're looking to see them getting there over the finish line. And I find it as an exciting end to the season, even though we'll not get the break yet. But I think it's really good. And I just hope it goes right to the wire, to be honest.
I think what has raised the profile of our game. You know, as strange as it sounds, you know, because everybody's expecting Celtic to turn, including probably Celtic, to basically turn up and effectively win the league. And I think the fact that it isn't Rangers or Celtic and it is a Hearts, that's raised the profile of our game. We've had Andy Burrows on there, and it's okay. Andy and Scott cast, the guys we had on a couple of weeks ago, cast slightly more than an eye towards Scottish football occasionally, you know. But we've had them on, and they've said obviously what it's done down south in terms of the fact that we are getting that bit more profile, you know. So to my mind, well, Hearts, I think it'd be great for winning, great for Scottish football if they win the league. The worst thing that could happen for our game this season is if Celtic go in and win the league, because you're looking at an absolutely dire Celtic side being strong enough to beat the rest of Scottish football, you know. So I think for our game, we desperately need a Hearts, and possibly slightly less than that, a Rangers to win the league this season. The worst thing to my mind, guys, that could happen this season for Scottish football is Celtic to win that Premier League.
I think it'll be disappointing for, we try to be a neutral here, for people that are maybe wanting to look at the game being good, and it would be, in my eyes, a team that don't deserve it if the Old Firm win the league, because over the course you would only say, well, how can that be when we've got more points? We did win the league, so we do deserve it. But I keep looking at the game as entertainment, and I'm not just wanting teams to go over the line because they've spent more money than the team that ends up third or whatever it may be. And that's where I hate this. You know, you can throw money at anything, but when the product is still garbage and you've thrown money at it, I think that makes it even worse. So my disappointment would be if Hearts don't go over the line, that one of the Old Firm actually win it. And Old Firm supporters, if they are listening, will go, you're off your head, we must win it. Well, you've got to be good enough. And I think if Hearts can stay there, they will be good enough. I really do. There's still a long way to go, of course.
Yeah, it's 7 games to go. Obviously 2 to the split, then you've got 5 for the splits. There's still, 21 points to play for.
A lot to play for.
But this time Celtic have normally won the league. You know, so we've got that bit of excitement this season. But as I say, that's looking at the SPFL or the Premier League. We're also on to discuss the Lowland League tonight. And as I say, Colin, this is where you come into your own in terms of what's happening up at Central Park this season. Sitting in 11th spot, a draw and 2 defeats in your last 3 games. But to my mind, and to what you were saying earlier on, it's not necessarily been as bad a season as what the positioning that would suggest.
No, listen, I mean, first and foremost, I'll probably give praise to the teams at the top end of the league. I always like to give credit where it's due. It's actually an exciting league here. We've got 4 teams all pushing for that top spot. Trinent have been exceptional. Bonnyrigg, Linlithgow and Clyde. And my tip at the start was Clydebank. I tipped them at the very beginning before a ball was kicked. I still think Clydebank will get over the line, but to be honest, it is literally anybody's. But look, we're not in that pack, but it's exciting for those clubs and its fan bases. And it's look, I think the Lowland League's always been a runaway leader, East Kilbride, because they ultimately spent the most money. And look, I don't always want to talk about money, but the top 4 in this league are the top 4 pairs in this league.
Yeah.
So sometimes money does talk, and I think the further down the pyramid you go, money does talk more than maybe like at Falkirk and Motherwell's, because they can still recruit really, really good players that can achieve good things. So going back to your kind of question about Cowdenbeath, yeah, listen, we're sitting 11th, and I'll argue till I'm blue in the face. Is that a success for the size of your club? No. However, nobody really knows the ins and outs of what's going on behind the scenes, and that's quite simple. Our budget got cut 30-odd%. I lost a manager. We lost 20 players. Had to recruit 23 new players. A young manager, Paul McLean, who's done an exceptional job. A couple of new staff members and all that stuff. We are 4 points off getting to the total that we had last year, and we've still got 5 games. So we've got 18 points to play for. Like, we want to win them all. So for me, if I can beat last season's points tally, I would consider that a success. Not just because of the points tally, but because of what's been set up. This year was transition, and it's all about building towards, we've got like another 2-year plan. We've managed to secure 13, 14 of the boys for next season already. So we're guaranteed to be in the pre-season, knowing most of the group. I've already agreed 2 pre-contracts with a couple of lads. So a business is much better, and there's going to be a continuity there that we've not had for years in the Lowland League. And ultimately, we feel that's going to be the best chance and opportunity for the manager of the club to give us success, to get that wee bit higher. Realistically, are we going to win the league next year? No, not on the budget that we're going to have, but we can achieve in small steps something. And there is a little bit of fresh investment coming, which is good, which will help the club. But we need more to compete at the top end of the league. It is going to get split as well next year. It's going into the West Lowland League and the East Lowland League. So it's going to be a bit different. It's going to be potentially even more competitive. But, I'm not going to name names, but I know that there's East of Scotland Premier teams that have got 4 teams in particular that have got easily double, sometimes treble the budget that Cowdenbeath, East Stirling, Gretna, all these teams have got. But,
Has East Stirling got a budget?
East Stirling will probably be very similar to Cowdenbeath's budget.
They've gone away for the £10 a week thing, I would imagine.
Yeah, obviously in this league now, you're supposed to be paying minimum wage now as well.
Right.
That's another story for another day. Cowdenbeath were very professional that way. We adhere to the rules. We do everything by the book, which can be a bugbear when you're trying to recruit players. However, our average age is 21.3 for our squad. So it's a young group. We're giving young boys that have been released by academies, we're giving them opportunities.
What about that young boy, Reese Walker? Jamie texted to ask how he's doing. You've got him from Falkirk, I believe.
Falkirk, Reese has been... Reese at the start needed a bit... we had Reese last year.
Yeah.
And I'd seen Reese playing when he was like a young kid at Falkirk. I would say Reese has probably arguably been our best player since the turn of the year. In fact, I probably would say he has been our best player. Reese is a great lad.
He'll be called up then.
Well, I think his contract ends in the summer. I think. I mean, it's anybody's guess. I think. Look, at the end of the day, it's difficult for Falkirk on an upward trajectory. Bringing young boys through, he's ultimately got to be good enough. But I know that McGlynn and Paul Smith will be working with Reese and other young boys every day, and they'll know ultimately if they think they're going to be good enough. Reese has been excellent for us, and Reese isn't the only one. We've got other lads that have done really, really well. Young lads that have, Dylan Mock and Max Williamson. But then you mentioned Greg Denham, who you used to have. So we've got his lad. He's our captain, Jack Denham.
Shows you how old I'm getting. I had Greg as an 18-year-old.
Yeah,
and then he was my assistant at East Stirling as well.
Yeah,
so Greg and I have been around for a while. Not seen him in a few years, right enough, but but it just shows you're old now.
Well, Jack comes through the same stock. He's aggressive. He's big.
Greg potential was magnificent. He's probably one of the best 18-year-olds I ever seen, but unfortunately, he had problems with his knee, and it sort of sidelined him a bit. I mean, he obviously had a good career at Motherwell and Falkirk, but eventually it took its toll on him. But I thought he was outstanding as a youngster.
Yeah. So I mean, you're just boys like Jack that we've given real good opportunities because they came from below the pyramid, even below Lowland League. Yeah. We've given them opportunities and they've risen to the challenge. But look, we need to, as a club, we need to try and galvanise investment a little bit more. And we're not talking hundreds of thousands of pounds. We're talking the difference of potentially 20 grand, 30 grand. That could make a difference for going from an 11th to a 5th, a 4th, and then you start building things even higher than that. So look, that's the challenge, but we're giving ourselves the best opportunity. So we're not going to be ripping it up. We're not going to be, the manager signed a new contract. We've got an aging board, so we need to kind of get some fresh people, ideas, and look, a lot of clubs will be similar. But ultimately, I would say if we can get another 2-3 victories out of the next 5, I would say it's been a successful season.
But just looking at the last half dozen games that I've got here, you've drawn 3 and lost 3.
Yeah, we're going through a tough time now.
Yeah, but having said that though, because the league is quite big, and I raised this the last time you were on, I feel that league is quite big, and you're not worrying too much about having lost 8 games at this stage. Well, personally, in the point of you're not going anywhere. That's what I mean.
No,
you're not going to go at the bottom of this. The way it would be where you come out of the second division, if you're sitting there with the amount of games in the run you've had, which is poor. Whereas if you look at the second division with a smaller league, does that affect how you maybe look at it? And it means you're okay, we just take it as it is. Or do you find it reflects any difference for you thinking, wait a minute, we really need to get up that table?
I think, yes, for certain, when you're in the Lowland League, the biggest travesty, the biggest issue is clearly the fact that, I don't want to say there's meaningless games, but whether you finish 8th, 14th, what there's no monetary value, there's no cachet to it. All you can do is have internal goals and gains and stuff. But listen, the division needs a top 4 playoff type thing, something to achieve so that you've got, and then maybe a bottom 2. But listen, again, I go back to it. I just don't see that happening anytime soon, purely because of the politics involved with certain clubs and look. So all we can do is deal with the kind of hand you've dealt. It's tough because you want to keep the players motivated. You want to keep this, the staff, even the fans. Like, it impacts on finances.
Yeah.
If you're a fan and you go, Cowdenbeath are playing Gala today, 11th and 12th in the league. There's no relegation. We can't finish it. Oh well, actually, I'll sit and I'll go and watch the telly.
Well, that came to my mind because you've got Gretna tomorrow down at Gretna. Yeah, and our company, the company I work with, we sponsor Gretna. We're a shirt sponsor. If I'd known earlier, I might have actually taken a trip down because I keep meaning to go down at one point.
Great we set up. Great we set up.
Yeah, if you look at where you are at this moment in time and you hit on it there, the financial coming through the gates is not going to help you if teams are travelling like that. Supporters are not going to come down and support you. And I always find that's difficult when you've got distances like that. Cowdenbeath to Gretna, and it's back to the size of the league again. But unless you get a really high injection of money, do you think you're going to struggle in that division, if we call struggling being where you are at this moment in time?
I think that we have to have a plan on the pitch and off the pitch. I feel like on the pitch we've almost achieved the plan. We've put a lot of things in place that's different from how we've done things before. Off the pitch, there's been improvements, even very small things like our social media presence, or we've got like a VO camera now, which means that we can actually film home games, away games, stream them, etc. And I know that's, to other clubs, well, we've been doing that for 2-3 years, but we've just not the finance to do that. So our commercial activity has been good, our hospitality is good. There's people now in certain areas of the club, and I'll use it as a business. You know, it's a business at the end of the day. We've got more facets of the business working well, which will ultimately, hopefully, translate onto the pitch, which means better performance. But ultimately, again, I go back to it. Sometimes it boils down to a guy going through clean on goal, missing the chance or scoring the chance, whether these things are, do you know what I mean? So it is down to players and managers that win you football games. We can only try and, you know.
What is your plan then? I assume your ambitions to get back into the Scottish League, right? Have you got a plan in maybe 5-year plan or 10 years? Have you got any target in your head that says, right, we've gave that a good shout because we're forward thinking, this is what we need to do to get there? Have you got a plan that is sort of in place with that?
There's a couple of things I can't really talk about now. There's conversations going on with some people, significant people, about investment and not just, as I said, not just a kind of £20,000 investment or £30,000 to reduce your budget a wee bit. Significant, because look, Cowdenbeath's a big club. It's a big club in terms of the scope of Scottish football. And I'm not saying other clubs aren't in the Lowland League, but I would say Cowdenbeath's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, in terms of the kind of Scottish landscape of football from where we've been, even as far back as the 30s and the 40s. We always had a really good history, 60s as well. So, and bringing through young managers, Craig Levein, Mixu Patalainen, Danny Lennon, Michael O'Neill. I mean, I can keep going on. So what we want to do is we need to try and get back to that in some way, because look, these managers didn't have big budgets. You know, Craig Levein was paying players £20 a week. However, the club would like to get back to the SPFL. Clearly, what we're going to have to do to get there is going to, it will boil down to money. It really is as simple as that. But what we're trying to do now is, can we go from a 10th place team to a top 5 team within the next 2 years? Well, probably next year is what we're going to hopefully do that. Then once you've got the confidence, and then we've got hopefully got even more fan base, there is people that are willing to potentially put some money in if they see progression on the field. And so we need to, it's almost like chicken and egg. You need to get that extra bit of dough. You need to start performing. And that's why I'm saying, you know, to players and the manager sometimes, you know, every game is vital, because we need to try and, you know, although there's no monetary value in the league position, or finishing 9th and 10th, it's just 9th and 10th, we'll know we need to try and always better our last year's performance. And as I said, the manager's done a brilliant job, as have the players, and hopefully achieving that this year. But ultimately we need to get better next year. There'll be pressure on that. And then for year 2, that's when we're hoping that the investment, a wee bit more investment, will come to then start challenging at the top end with the bigger teams, whomever that may be.
Is there such a gulf at the top? I mean, I'm
financially, yes.
To the side here, and is that, if you look at the Lithgow Rose, again, I've only got the last 6 games. They've won 6 in a bounce, right? Probably more. Then you look at Clydebank and Trinent and Bonnyrigg Rose, who's had a bit of a stutter recently. But if you look at that top 5, Is it the finances that's actually got them there? Or can you see the
would,
standard and quality of these teams being
well,
so much above that it's hard to catch?
I don't want to belittle their achievement because they deserve to be there.
Yep.
But I know that the top five, I've got the top five biggest budgets in the league. So,
yeah.
But at the same time, they've recruited well. They've got good managers. They've got their own thing individually. As I said, I tipped Clydebank at the start, but I actually think that Linlithgow have been the best team we've played, as an example.
The best team I've seen, I thought, was Linlithgow.
Yeah, so for me, Linlithgow are the best, and I think they've got the best squad and stuff as well. But then Trinent have got a lot of momentum. They've got Robbie Horn that's been there before, so it's going to be interesting. But going back to your kind of question about the financial side, look, they've got players also that aren't also going to be in a lot of money, but I think they've got some difference makers, and the difference makers are what cost money. Teams like your Gretnas, your Cowdenbeath and all that, we've not got the difference makers because we're not willing to pay some of the figures or transfer fees or signing on fees that these clubs can do. It's just really as simple as that. And sometimes they work and sometimes you don't. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to recruit just that level below, hoping that they will become these types of players that are going to get you 20 goals. So, and I believe that we've got that. I believe we've got boys in our changing room that can go on and ultimately play higher than Lowland League and ultimately go and command double, treble their wages. And they're not on a lot of money here, and they are part-time, so they are going to have, some of them are working jobs, some of them are at uni, some of them are going to be leaving full-time football soon and going to have to get into the big bad world. So we also help them with that. That's something I do. I've had boys asking me for references when they're applying for jobs or uni or, so we do things, everything really, really professionally and really well to help these young lads. We want to get back to giving them a platform, but we badly need a couple of experienced heads to help them.
Well, that's what I was going to say. What is your mix just now? If you look,
I would say we've got Nat Wedderburn, who's played at a right good level. He's played, championship with Dunfermline, Wraith Rovers, Inverness Cali. Brilliant lad. Probably, in my opinion, I've had a lot of experienced players come and go at the club. Nat's probably for me been the easiest experienced pro I've ever dealt with. Just a gentleman, helping the young boys, and he's still got quality. But Nat's really the only one. He's 34, 35. And then the manager, he also plays. And I keep saying to him, I think you're too good to be on the side, but he's wanting to focus and wants to give the young boys the chance, which I love about him. He's going, look, I didn't want to play because I'm doing this young boy. Got young boy Harvey Petrie now that's got 3 man of the matches in the last 4 games. Nick just turned 19. 6'4", quick, aggressive, can pass the ball, but he's got a wee mistake in him like anybody that's young and raw. But they need 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 games before they can then step to the next level, which might only be League 2, but then they go again. So, this is what we're trying to install, is if we can get 30 to 60 games into some of these 18 to 20-year-old lads, they're going to be far, far better players for it.
Yeah.
How's the junior scene? Do you find you tap into the junior scene to bring them on board?
Well, obviously we've got, it's more the level below us is really the East of Scotland Premier and the First Division. So we've recruited, I would say we had 3 boys coming up levels last year. We don't tend to recruit from the leagues now much. We might bring 1 or 2 because ultimately the boys dropping at leagues are still on money that we can't afford, to be honest. We can maybe afford 1 or 2, maybe a 1 or 2, but definitely not 10, 11, 12. So you've got to be very, very careful and get the right
that's
type.
the problem. I found that when I was at East Stirling that I can recall going for a player, and he was at Petershill Juniors, I think, and he said, I'll love to come and play senior. He said, but the money I get from signing on from Petershill in the summer takes me and my family on holiday. Whereas East Stirling just wasn't going to happen. So, and I would find that was maybe a difficult spot for yourselves because you're in between that window where you could offer them second division football, But because that level now that's formed a right good league that yous are in, that doesn't maybe seem as attractive for somebody leaving junior to come in there unless it's financially rewarding. So I would imagine you've got a hard job trying to maybe convince some juniors to come in there.
It's hard. It's tough. Even as I said, like we lost players to juniors. Well, not juniors, but teams below us.
Yeah, that level
in the pyramid. And one player, I won't name him. One player actually says because the league I'm going to, they've actually got like if they finish top 4, and so he's actually got something to play for. Which I took it on the chin and says, look, I think it's a level below you, but he wanted that feeling of winning. To achieve something, whereas if we win at Cowdenbeath, we realistically, I think the players know we're not going to finish top of the league. We're just not. But that's not defeatist, that's realist.
It's difficult, Colin. I think we discussed that the last time when you were on, how difficult it is to not the word survive in that, but to be focused in trying to get to that top section with one financial restraints and just obviously the attractiveness. There's no other 4 teams that are ready to leap into the second division.
But so I still maintain that there's a model there that you can achieve good things with just a wee bit more money, not 200 grand more or anything like that. Look, if somebody says to me, what does it take to win the Lowland League? I'll give them a figure, and I can almost certainly say that I can put a team together that will win the league. But I suppose you could say that in any world football, really.
Rangers do that, so does Celtic. It's no worse.
Well, actually, but then you've got the point of you can really muck it fucking up. So, look, we're trying to do things differently than we've maybe done in the past, and I believe that. Well, I'll ask you, Dennis, and Cammy, if I said to you, reduce your playing budget by 30%, but actually improve your actual football performance next season, you'd go, how am I going to achieve that? We're on the cusp of doing that. So that's why I would say that we've had a successful season. I mean, it's really as black and white for me as that. And then again, we need to go next season and improve again on a budget that's might be a little bit improved, but still less than what we had last year. So we need to go again. But I think that we've got enough talent. We've got a young manager and a staff that we believe in. But ultimately, it's the same. Like if it's a results-driven business, if we lose 10 games in a row, we're going to have people coming for me and the manager and the chairman and the players. So, but there's an understanding, I think, now with our fan base and the outside world that it is difficult. But we also, I think we play the right way. We don't bang it. We don't. I don't like that term, bang it, but like we do try and play through the thirds because we've got quite good technical players. Can we get better technically and passing the ball? Of course. But there's definitely teams in the Lowland League that play very attractive football. There's teams that are more direct, that kind of put you under a lot of pressure with a lot of diagonal balls and long kicks up the pitch to play in areas that you don't want to defend in, and that's fine. And that's what I say to young lads coming through, especially defenders or goalkeepers. The challenges you get week to week will vary so much because we could be playing Celtic B that are, they are coached to have 2 centre backs in their 6-yard box and then pass to each other, and then the left back's playing almost like a left winger, whereas then you flip it and then you're playing, I don't know, Trinent away on a tight pitch and Robbie's got his fullbacks fucking putting up to 2 lads up front and they're really coming in behind the ball. But look, whatever wins games is what helps. But we're probably a little bit in between. We're needing to kind of probably get a wee bit better on the ball, but do the dirtier side better as well. So, and that comes with development of our young boys. That's what the manager and the staff are doing really well.
But bringing it more back into the league itself, Colin, rather than Cowdenbeath. When you look at what East Kilbride have achieved this season in League 2, certainly the favourites, many people's favourites pre-season, and that looks as if it's going to be held out. When you look at the 4 clubs challenging to get to the playoffs at the top of the Lowland League, and the likes of Clydebank, Lithgow, Trinent, and obviously Bonnyrigg Rose, who have been a senior club in the last couple of seasons. What do you think any of the 4 clubs could achieve if they were successful going through the playoffs and next season in League Two?
I think for me, the biggest potential would be Clydebank. We went there early in the season. I was really impressed with their fan base, with certain things, and I think they've got a bit about them to go and kick on quite significantly. I think that Bonnyrigg have been there, but they've spent a lot of money on their pitch, hard working kind of committee and directors. Johnny Stewart's a good manager, done really well actually, because a wee sticky point for him, but he's went on a massive, brilliant run. But ultimately, I think Linlithgow's a big club as well. Historically one of the biggest, if not the biggest, junior club. Going around, and again, the recruitment's really good. So yeah, I think I might be right in saying though that Trinent, I don't know if they're actually going to be licensed or anything. I've not read too much into it. Again, I'm trying to focus on Cowdenbeath most of the time. But I would say that of those 4 teams going into that league, once you get that extra income that they would achieve, they've got, Bonnyrig's fan base is really good as well. Their attendances are good and stuff. I think Trinent's is maybe lowered a little bit, but Linlithgow get good attendances as well. But for me, the biggest one that could probably kick on the most would be Clydebank. But I'm sure everyone will bring something different to the table if they were to go up. It'll be a challenge, whomever it will be, because I think they might be playing Edinburgh City or and obviously they've got the Highland League team to play as well. And that's going to be really tough. But look, Robbie Horn's done it before with Bonnyrigg, and obviously Bonnyrigg, so he's at Trinent, so Trinent might do it. Clydebank are just used to winning leagues and used to winning, they've got a winning mentality. So yeah, look, it's going to be really interesting, and we actually play Clydebank on Wednesday. So although I've tipped them, I'll be hoping we and by the way, if any Clydebank fans are listening, get through to Central Park and support your club, because I think that'll be a right good game. We drew with them through there, and that was a big result for us. Earlier in the season,
we win that game.
Yeah, I think a lot of people maybe expected us not to be as good as maybe we have been, and that underdog started the season well for us. And then I think slowly but surely teams have actually started to go, oh, this team's actually not bad, and good young players. We need to do our homework, and we've had to kind of adapt to that a little bit as well. So no, it's exciting, the Lowland League this year for the first time in a while. Obviously there's no relegation, as Dennis says. I don't agree with it, but I can't really comment until the powers that be change the rules, and I feel for East Stirling. I know it's Dennis's old team. They've got a young manager there, Tappy, that's took over the job, and it's tough. It's really tough for them. And again, they've got a few young lads there. I think James McFadden, is he not there? His boy, James McFadden, not there. So yeah, there's a whole lot of kind of variables going on, and it was good to see Cumbernauld Colts winning the Lowland League Cup the other day, and you see what it means to people, because realistically Cumbernauld Colts are probably going to be saying it's going to be difficult for us to win the Lowland League as well. But they're actually a licensed club, so they've got the tools to actually be a League Two team.
The one thing they don't have is a fan base, unfortunately. I was there earlier this season for a game against Clydebank, and I think there literally was about half a dozen Colt supporters. They don't have a crowd there at Broadwood at all. Cumbernauld, traditionally, I think Clyde found out to their cost, it's a very, very difficult place to attract supporters, and you talked about the history of Cowdenbeath, the history of Lithgow Rose. Unless you've got some decent money, as East Kilbride have done, coming into obviously the Lowland League and then the Senior League, unless you've got that money, you're going to find it very, very difficult, I think, to attract fans. And even with the success that they're having, East Kilbride aren't necessarily, get a massive fan base either. Yeah, they do well at K Park, but they don't necessarily have a big fan base. And I think
You will never get it. You will never get that.
But I think that we're calling back. They've got that history as well. They've retained a lot of the support from when they were a senior club, obviously successful coming through the juniors. And that success has bred success and kept fans interested and going along to see them at Yokermill, so...
The thing is, though, Cammy, that you'll always get an exodus when you look at the Central Belt and going to Parkhead or Ibrox. Albion Rovers, the same.
Oh,
you go into the park the Saturday afternoon and you see the supporters' buses and droves going in to Glasgow.
Listen, we've had that for years.
Cumbernauld, dead duck for it, simply because of the same thing. There's periods where you might get the clubs to actually, when Clyde were at Broadwood, you might have got up to 1,200 supporters, but that was in a really good day. It's unfortunate that's the way we are. I don't think we have the same problem.
No, we've got the same problem. But the other thing, just going back to the actual league, is we've got good players in the league. I'm not just talking about Cowdenbeath. There's good players in that league, and that players that there you go. Keelan Adams was in this league. Barney Stewart was in divisions below us. He's on fire now. There's other good players that have come for this level and stepped up to League One, League Two, etc. And I believe that Linlithgow have got one or two for sure. They could easily play higher.
The boy Stenhouse impressed me when I was along.
Stenhouse, Dylan Patterson, Jeanette. I've got a couple of boys. Everybody really. I would say there's not many teams in the league that I couldn't pick one player that could probably play higher.
Do the job.
So, but then you go down to East of Scotland Premier, and again there's some talented boys down there, and Dunny Pace are doing really well with some young boys, and Musselburgh and Hillabeath Hawthorn, so we might have a derby next year. Hillabeath are coming up, so 10 years ago, who would have ever said and imagined that? But look, it is where we're at, but that will be interesting, and that will bring a fan base, and that will bring a little bit of uniqueness to have, a wee rivalry going potentially next year. And I think it'll be a healthy one where we'll get a good wee crowd, and somebody will have the bragging rights for a while and whatever. But I'm pretty confident Hillabeath will come up, and
do you still have the stock cars there?
Yeah, so it's a separate kind of entity. We don't own. Right. We don't own the stadium. We lease it.
Do you get any revenue from that?
No, we don't. And that's where it was. That's where the club ultimately led to some financial difficulties, because as soon as the ownership model changed, that's when it kind of started to kind of really become difficult. Not impossible, but difficult.
Mm-hmm. So financially, Colin, you're saying obviously about the finances. What are the restructuring mean to a club like Cowdenbeath, where you've maybe not got a trip west or south to Gretna, or you're maybe going along to Clydebank, so most of your games are obviously going to be through. I
think first and foremost, I just hit the nail on the head there with Hillabeath. We're going to get our average attendances should go.
Colin's lost his signal, I think.
No, it's still there, Dennis.
Is it? All right.
So I was just kind of saying our average attendances should go up with it being more localised type games.
I can't hear you.
Is Dennis having issues, Colin? On you go.
All right. Okay. Sorry. Because of the average attendances, I think that will mean a little bit more income. It won't be massive, but it will still be income. With respect, I think you hit the nail on the head. Cumbernauld Colts, Gretna, some other clubs don't bring fans ultimately, whereas when it gets split next year, Musselburgh, Hillabeath, whomever it may be, Brechin, one of the Dundee Midlands teams, they will bring a support to it, and it will add a different dimension to the league. And I think it's actually not too bad, but that will mean less cost because you don't have to get a bus to go to Gretna. And likewise, Gretna doesn't have to bring a bus to Cowdenbeath, and so it works both ways. So I think financially we'll be a little bit better off, but not life-altering if I'm honest. But at the same time, any extra income is good, and I think it will whet the appetite of some more local kind of fans that maybe are on the fence to come. They wouldn't mind going seeing Cowdenbeath play Hillabeth on Musselburgh, something different, you know.
No, no, that was good insight into obviously, as we say, that sort of more grassroots of Scottish football, getting away from the Premier League or the European stuff that we did a couple of weeks ago. But one final bit of news, Dennis. Obviously, I know you're keen. We're not going to get time to get the international stuff in this week, but one final bit of news. Obviously, you mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, the incident between the St Mirren and Motherwell. You know, when the Motherwell lads Slattery did everything he possibly could to get the St Mirren player sent off. And there's been a wee bit of news about that, and I know you were wanting to sound off about that. So just before we finish off...
I'm not to sound off about it. I'm going to make the point that at least they did pick up on it. Yeah. And he's had a 4-match ban or suspension with 2 suspended. I think it's only right, because it was as clear as day that the player getting sent off did not commit a foul in relation to the antics of Slattery going down. I called it a cheat at the time. I still call it cheating. But I don't think Motherwell were too happy with the sentence. And that disappoints me, because when you look at, and we've talked about Motherwell being very good and young players watching things like this, are they going to learn from that rather than the good habits? And I also think that Motherwell should have fined the player in some way or another to let everybody know that they're not going to put up with cheating. Now, I did raise the point at the time the St Mirren player was sent off. Did that have any effect in the game? I don't think it did. But what if it had been tight, nothing each, and Motherwell went on to win it 3-0 with a player that was wrongly sent off, and then it was overturned? So, you know, what happens with the points with that? And this is for the future, that you need to think, what do you do in an instance like this? When you review it later on and you see that the person who's actually been sent off is not guilty and the other party is guilty and the guilty party has won the match, what do you do with that? And I think that's important, because you could imagine something like that happening in the top 3 at this moment in time. When we look at this with a run-in, this could be crucial. And I do think that, one, we shouldn't have players cheating, and I think clubs should stand by not the actual player. I think they should stand by the way that the issue was dealt with and made it more. And I just felt it was wrong. I'm not having a rant about it, because it did get picked up. At the time, I was quite angry because it wasn't right. I don't know if you've seen it, Colin. Slattery went in, and was it King from St Mirren put his hand out, and Slattery went down as if somebody had been a sniper in the stand, and it was really poor. And it did look like blatant cheating, deliberately trying to get a player sent off, which he did, and he's got 4 games for it. Now that might have gone under the radar. I was quite surprised when I seen it in the news yesterday.
I'm surprised. Yeah, I'm a wee bit surprised. I'm surprised at the punishment. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but if you look at things, a 4-game ban for that, for me, sends quite a strong statement.
Yeah.
I don't think it's strong enough. I honestly don't think it's enough.
But then, seriously, you go back to it, what if somebody goes over the ball and does it like a proper nasty tackle? They might only get 3 games and they could let somebody. Look, I agree with that. Yeah. I understand the logic. I think 4 games is a lot. I mean, and Motherwell are, that will affect Motherwell potentially. That could be the difference. He could be the difference.
You're right. And maybe it'll stop it. I only look at it and say 4 games at this time of the season for Motherwell, that is a massive, because the boy's been playing great for them. He really has.
Yeah, he's a good player.
And 4 matches with him missing will be a hard one to take. But where do you draw the line? I'm saying maybe more games. So we could have that debate all day long, because I'm looking at it going back to what I said. What happens if that incident had caused St Mirren to lose the game that particular day on the back of a player being sent off?
You're going to get that in any game. Let's be fair. Players players tend to try to con the ref on a regular basis, you know. So I think Motherwell are maybe right to feel aggrieved at 4. I still think Motherwell are maybe right to feel aggrieved at 4 games. You know, certainly some kind of suspension. When you're getting 3 for serious foul play or a straight red or whatever, you know, you maybe do have to question 4 games for simulation or cheating or whatever you want to call it, you know. But my question is, what the hell's VAR there for? You know, because VAR should be picking up in that and turning around and saying to the referee, you've made an absolute howler here. There's absolutely no...
Absolutely,
you know, question VAR.
Yeah,
you know, first
that's
the
problem.
You know,
wasn't it? It's no for a rant. It's just to say it was picked up. The debate is it too many games? Is it not enough? Then, you know, but there has been something dealt out, which I think is right. Whether 4 matches or not is right, but at least it's been picked up on, and hopefully it'll stop. Because
I think it will mean that some clubs' players will probably go, oh, actually,
right.
But when you're in the heat of that moment, guys aren't thinking like that.
It's a deterrent.
It should be a deterrent, but again, they should know VAR's watching them as well, you know. So from that point of view, they should be aware of the fact that there's eyes on them, you know. So they're still going to take the risk and take the chance. But yeah, possibly the fact they're wondering if they're going to get a 4-game ban or a 2-game ban or whatever else, any kind of ban, is maybe going to have them thinking at the back of their mind. But anyway, we've had another long show. That's 2 in the bounds for an hour and 20 odd minutes tonight. So
and I'll just give you the results before we do finish, Cammy. Partick Thistle are beating Ross County 2-1, and Wraith Rovers are beating Ayr United 1-0.
Yeah, I was at Wraith last Saturday, and I think I says to Colin before we came on, the first half was dreadful. The second half, what a difference! A complete and utter difference. Total turnaround. Second half was an absolutely outstanding game. Performance by Easton, Dylan Easton, it was, Colin, whose name I couldn't remember earlier on.
He's a proper good player.
Cracking player, you know, decent career. Certainly spent a bit of his time at Broadwood as well, you know, for Clyde. But no, he turned the game, a couple of pinpoint deliveries for corners for Wraith Rovers to take a 2-1 lead. And then, as I say, just clinching it towards the end. But a completely different second half to what the first half was. First half, I was falling asleep in the stand. Second half, I was on the edge of my seat, you know. So, no, good turnaround for that game. But anyway, as I say, I think an hour and 20 odd minutes, that's enough for anybody to listen to when they listen back to us in the podcast. Go ahead, as I say, like and subscribe to the podcast. Tell your pals. Hit that notification bell as well. You get advised whenever we do a new episode. And next week's episode, just to preempt it, will be on the Thursday night. Dennis and I will do a show next Thursday, the football pitch, rather than the Friday. I've got a gig on a Friday night, and Dennis is, I don't know, he's got his old age pensioners, whisk drive or something like that. You know, I'm not very sure exactly what he's doing. But as I say, go ahead. Right. Go ahead, like and subscribe to the podcast. And as I say, tell your pals. And as Colin mentioned earlier on, any Clydebank fans, get along to Central Park in midweek on Wednesday night. What time's the kick-off, Colin, on Wednesday? Can you mind?
7:45, mate.
7:45. So get along to that one. All that remains is to thank Colin Nelson again for coming in, giving his experience. It is always good, as I say, to go down the leagues as well. We have focused the last few weeks on the Premier League in Scotland, down south and Europe, you know, so it's nice to get back to talking some good old Scottish football, you know, and getting back to the likes of Cowdenbeath. So thanks very much, Colin, for joining us. Thanks as always, Dennis. You and I will need to catch up with that coffee at some point, mate.
Yeah, we'll do it.
But as I say, go ahead, like, subscribe. Remember, next week we're on Thursday night. Come along, catch the show, because everything is always happening on the pitch.